And here it is, my newest case for my PC at home, almost final version. And what I wanted to replace is this, the Cooler Master NR200. It's actually a perfect case. I can't really say there's anything wrong with it, but it's just that the components that they have, they can be in a smaller case. On the inside, there is, I don't think I have seen a better case which can fit like everything, the radiators. I had the water cooling in it as well. But the best part for me is this opening that is made so that you can actually slide in the GPU, and with that you get the maximum length you can from this case to fit the GPU you possibly can. And this is how it was built. Here we have actually the most important bits are about the sliding mechanism, because I cannot print this everything in one piece. And I wanted this to be, well, without the screws, so everything should just slide in. And for that, the most interesting pieces are here, which we can see the best from the bottom. So how it actually, like the middle is the main frame and the sides slide in. And this is how it was actually made, so that the sides could just slide in from the bottom in this case. Now for the top and the bottom part, it's also slide in these sides that we slide in as well in the frame. And for that we have almost the same mechanism, which is then made in the top and the bottom piece of the sides. And now the point is exactly this, that it's not visible from this side, so that it cannot exit once it's fully pressed inside. Then on the back it's the same. I mean, the both parts and the top left, bottom and right are sliding in the same way. You don't see it once it's assembled, that's the point. But then the GPU itself, right, it gets attached to the left side. There is a IO shield that can press against it. And the good part about my reference card is that it has the mount points 4 holes at the bottom. So then with the 4 holes it's secured tightly, not to move anywhere. Here we can also look at the PSU. In this orientation, to actually have the least space used, it's blowing air at the bottom, which with the feet is fine. I mean, there is enough space. But equally, yeah, there is an opening made for the cable so that it could fit more nicely when you use the like the slim angled connector for it. Then back on the graphics card itself, what I didn't want is that well, in general about the cables, I didn't want the cables go up in some other cases that are designed. I really want the cables to go at the back, and that's how I achieved this here with yeah, oriented the motherboard against a bit differently against the GPU. And for that to work, yeah, I made this space. There is a lot of space for the cables as much as possible, while still being very strong build. And so yeah, this hole in the middle is where the cables actually go. And yeah, I wasn't really sure, but it seems my cable was flexible enough for this to be just perfect. And then it's time for printing. These are the sides showing the sliding mechanism. So the sides are also halves that have to, well, connect one to each other, but they don't really connect one with each other because there is no need. Actually, a bit of super glue here is perfect for the usage, but it's not really needed. Just removing this piece from the plate gets me extra excited to make this build. And just look at this print. I mean, this printed in PETG at high temperature, full speed, but it ends up looking so great that yeah, it's probably one of the bigger reasons why I'm doing this. This is what ends up as a bottom part, because we actually don't really see it, and because of the printing orientation, which depends now on these slides orientation as well, then one side looks way better than the other. This is the front panel, at least the first iteration. We'll see later on how this changed, but yeah, just the look of it, I mean the mesh outcome, this is really beautiful to me, especially in this thickness, although in the end I did make it a bit thinner because that was just no need to have it this strong. The top part of the front panel didn't change, has again the holes for the magnets to connect them. It looks great, all the sides, even with super fast printing that they do on this Bambu Lab printer. I really cannot see anything that looks as if something I didn't want. It is missing the logo, but we'll fix that. And it's time to connect the pieces. Sometimes with a hammer. And that's intentional. The tolerances are super tight, but everything just fits perfectly in the end. Here I have the top end components that was at least a few years back. It's unbelievable how time flies so fast. A 6mm standoffs are needed, or just the spacers can be used, which can be printed as long as the screw goes through and can securely fit the motherboard. And again, just super nice fit. Top and the bottom part actually have to be inserted first. And components can just be now mounted, everything is ready. It goes without saying that the modular cables have to be used for the power supply. The design is really utilizing all possible available space. On the GPU side we have the 6900 XT. It's pressing fully against the side, and that's a mesh, so it gets all the air it possibly could need. And this is the front panel, the panel that is used to cover it. So it's again just a simple connection between the two pieces, and it ends up super strong. And I like, especially when we insert the magnets into it, like how it feels. It feels almost like the Cooler Master case, which is something like this. And here they don't use the magnets, they use their special design, which, I mean, it's perfect. I really don't see the point in using any screws. And it's also used here on the sides. And this is what we get. And this is what the almost final build looks like. It also shows here on the front that I ran out of the filament, so when I replace it, it's a different color because I didn't have the same white one, which I thought might end up cool, but since it was like in the middle of the process, maybe it didn't. On the back we have all the ports as we expect, no cables coming from the top side, also for the GPU as well. Everything is meshed, quite a bit of ventilation, and yeah, we can see a bit of the connections made in between, but I think it still ends up looking really nice. And the primary reason why I wanted this is because I prefer the cases to be taller and not wider. So for me, there wasn't really a case perfect for me, and actually because I can build one, it was a perfect excuse to, well, do exactly that. This doesn't show perfectly, but it's smaller in every direction except the height, which is kinda expected. And we are yet to put the feet on. And this is obviously my main computer that I use, and it was logical that I continue to finalize the design on the PC itself. But as I was just starting to do some basic stuff that I do the modeling, a bit of watching tutorials, I realized that this, well, it's hitting the temperature super quickly, like the high temperature, so going close to the 90s just from this, in my perspective, basic usage. And the worst part of it is the noise that you get from the fan. So it was obvious that I'll replace it. And I had this Noctua Slim fan, which is just the size that I needed to fit in. Although I did know from before, and I did confirm it again, that this is just too noisy and you barely get any improvement actually. So the next step was to buy the best slim fan you could get, and this indeed fixed most of the problems. Well, the main problem, but it was still a bit louder than I know it can be, and especially because I have the Artic Cooler, which I used as my primary fans. So then I went with this idea of having the fan like cut through, because there was just not enough space in the size I wanted. So I had to like gain a few millimeters. And with this solution I found it quite neat on how to solve this, and with a bit of grill at the front, this was just working perfectly. But something interesting happened, that is that I ran out of the magnets that I use for the build, and the new ones, the same ones that are supposed to be, were quite different dimensions. So I ordered a completely different dimension that was way longer. And as I reused the case for the original magnets, then this actually gave me just enough space that the fan can go fully inside. So if we ignore the fact that this prolonged the build for the 3 extra weeks, I would say that was actually the perfect ending. And I think I might use this trick also in the future if I need to gain some extra space without actually increasing the size of the sides and everything in the build. And here we actually show how the cable now comes when it's fully connected for the power supply. So it comes from the bottom, and then on the top we also have the cable coming from the graphics card. And all the ports being easier to access because they're on top. And this just drove me to make some further improvements. The first one was that I didn't like the USB-A ports that I had, so the replacement was here, the cable that I can use for the same front panel port to get the USB-C cable at the front. And the final one was to put a really nice small button just for the powering and get rid of the reset one, because I never used that one on my PC for the past I don't know how many years. And with that we are done. This is the final revision of the case, and now the PC can be used, well, at least to create another one. This obviously fits my components, but I'll upload the files in case somebody finds it useful.